Seemed like a normal, typical family on the outside.
No, they didn't. This video has been terrifying TikTok for weeks. It shows a group of friends exploring an abandoned drainage tunnel in Seattle, Washington, a city known for having entire underground sections people barely talk about. They were just recording with their phones, laughing, messing around, until someone suddenly noticed that Mason was missing. The tunnel went silent. Then a faint echo came from somewhere deep inside, like someone trying to speak, but too far away. They followed the sound, the camera shaking harder with every step, and then the beam of the phone light landed on him. Mason was sitting in the corner, curled up, completely still. But when the camera got close, he lifted his head, and his eyes were glowing red, staring at the group at a broken, impossible angle. Not human, not alive, just wrong. Until one of them whispered, "Dude, that's not Mason." Not like a person, but like something wearing a person. Everyone screamed. People are still arguing what they saw that night in Seattle. Because if that wasn't Mason, what followed them out of that tunnel?
Australia is such a safe place, but is it though? Because it's just come out that they think there's a serial killer on the loose in Byron Bay said to be worse than Ivan Milat, linked to 67 victims. Oh, and all of these people have been going missing in this area for 10 plus years, but they've only just decided to tell the public. By the way, there's been at least 67 victims, all women who have dropped off the face of the earth and been swept under the rug, who are now linked to this one serial killer, who they still haven't found, by the way. Police say one of the worst serial killers in our history is possibly walking amongst us, because they don't know where he is. So that's happening in Australia.
This woman is not as innocent as she looks. 2015 in Nebraska, there was this woman. Her name is Mary Wan. She's known as Little Mary. Mary has a twisted hobby. Neighbors whispered that anyone who crossed her path mysteriously vanished. No one ever suspected her until one day a young boy named Jimmy delivered the groceries to her house. His family searched everywhere for him, but the only clue they found is a single bag of grocery in Mary's doorstep. Jimmy's family called the police, and the police came to Mary and asked Mary whereabouts the missing boy, and Mary offered them tea. The police found nothing in Mary's home, and they move on. But on one night, a neighbor found something terrifying. Mary was digging a hole at her backyard under the full moon, burying something. The next morning, a new beautiful flower bed appeared on the same spot Mary was digging at night. Guess what? Months later, many people vanished, and Mary was the last person to see them. When the truth came out, it was far worse than anyone ever imagined. You know what Mary did? Mary has been using her victim for fertilizer for her garden. The police and the authorities came to her, and she was vanished. What they found under her bed is so terrifying. What they saw on her bed was horrifying. Watch out for the part 2.
Chris and Lisanne set out for their hike of the Panamanian jungle on April 1st, 2014. They even brought their hostess family's dog with them, as this was only supposed to be a day hike. So when the dog returned home that night with neither Chris or Lisanne, panic set in. It was soon after this that the police in the Netherlands, the girls' home country, got involved. But after 10 days of searching, they still turned up nothing. In fact, it wouldn't be until 10 weeks later that they finally got the first hint that the girls were even in the forest at all. A blue backpack was found along a riverbank. Inside, personal items, $83 in cash, 2 cell phones, and a camera were found. The backpack belonged to Lisanne, and it was with this information that police were able to see that the girls had first tried to reach 911 just a few hours into their hike. Lisanne's battery died on the 4th, so her phone was never used again. Chris's phone wouldn't make any more attempts to reach 911, but it was repeatedly turned on to search for service. And between April 5th and April 11th, Chris's phone would be turned on multiple times, but whoever was using it was not putting in the right passcode. Over the course of just 4 days, the girls had made 77 separate attempts at reaching 911, but had no service. They then looked at Lisanne's camera. It contained photos of their hike on April 1st, suggesting that everything was going as planned. But 7 days later, on April 8th, 90 photos were taken between 1 and 4 a.m., all with the flash of the camera on. It appeared as if they were still in the middle of the jungle. Some of the photos showed the girls' belongings spread out on rocks, and another photo shows the back of Chris's head with what appears to be blood leaking from her temple. The pictures go from picture 508, where everything seems to be perfectly fine, and skips forward to the first night photo at 5:10. These were taken 7 days apart. and nobody seems to have any idea where picture 509 is. It's speculated that this picture is missing on purpose. After all, if it were just deleted from the camera roll, police would still be able to obtain it. More searches for the girls were set out along the riverbank where the backpack was found. Soon after this, they find Chris's shorts neatly placed on a rock. 2 months later, they find a pelvis bone and a boot with the foot still inside. DNA testing confirmed that these belonged to Chris and Lisanne. Police questioned locals, tour guides, and other hikers in the area at the time, but nobody could provide any information as to what might have happened. And there was never enough evidence to ever determine a cause of death. To this day, the disappearance and deaths of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon remains a mystery. If you'd like to hear the full story or are interested in hearing about more unsolved mysteries, please go check out my podcast, Oddities on Elm Street. It's linked in my bio.
The couple seemed like a normal, typical family on the outside.
No, they didn't. This video has been terrifying TikTok for weeks. It shows a group of friends exploring an abandoned drainage tunnel in Seattle, Washington, a city known for having entire underground sections people barely talk about. They were just recording with their phones, laughing, messing around, until someone suddenly noticed that Mason was missing. The tunnel went silent. Then a faint echo came from somewhere deep inside, like someone trying to speak, but too far away. They followed the sound, the camera shaking harder with every step, and then the beam of the phone light landed on him. Mason was sitting in the corner, curled up, completely still. But when the camera got close, he lifted his head, and his eyes were glowing red, staring at the group at a broken, impossible angle. Not human, not alive, just wrong. Until one of them whispered, "Dude, that's not Mason." Not like a person, but like something wearing a person. Everyone screamed. People are still arguing what they saw that night in Seattle. Because if that wasn't Mason, what followed them out of that tunnel?
Australia is such a safe place, but is it though? Because it's just come out that they think there's a serial killer on the loose in Byron Bay said to be worse than Ivan Milat, linked to 67 victims. Oh, and all of these people have been going missing in this area for 10 plus years, but they've only just decided to tell the public. By the way, there's been at least 67 victims, all women who have dropped off the face of the earth and been swept under the rug, who are now linked to this one serial killer, who they still haven't found, by the way. Police say one of the worst serial killers in our history is possibly walking amongst us because they don't know where he is. So that's happening in Australia.
Hey guys, I have a very scary story to tell you about my mum and I when we were in London about 2 months ago. Okay, so we're staying in a really nice hotel. It's 5 stars, beautiful. Anyway, this one night we got home at like 12 a.m. and we got ready for bed, fell asleep, and then I got woken up by mum like nudging me and like whispering something to me, but I sleep with like a sleep mask on, and I must have thought that it was morning because the lights were all on in the room, so I thought it was just daylight. So I took it off and I'm like looking at her and I'm like, what? Like, what do you want? And she's like, Maddie, someone's in our room. And I'm like looking at her, I don't know, I'm still whispering. I'm like looking at her and I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I swear to God, I just saw someone walk into our bathroom. And I was like, what? And I look at the time and it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, what are you talking about? And we're both silent for like 5 seconds, and then we hear something in the bathroom, and so we jump out of bed and run to the front door, and we're standing by the front door, like we haven't closed the door yet because we don't have a key, and like we've just left everything inside, and it's like quite a big room as well, and the bathroom is right next to the bed, but the lights in the bathroom were off, but we were hearing noises. Anyway, I'm like looking at mum and like our hearts are like racing, and then we couldn't hear anything. Mum was like, maybe I'm hallucinating, or maybe like I dreamt it. And I'm just like, in my head I'm thinking, if this bitch is woke me up 3 a.m. because she's literally dreaming, I'm literally gonna kill her. Anyway, we're still by the door, we're silent. Mum goes around the corner to like look where the bed and bathroom is. She can't see anything, but then she hears like a noise, and so she runs back out, and we're doing the exact same thing. We're standing there like we have no idea what's going on, but we keep hearing these sounds from the bathroom. So then after a little while, it's my turn to look, and I walk around the corner and I run back. I see something and I run back to Mum and I go, Mum, there is a man in our bed. And she goes, are you effing serious? And I said, yep, there is a man in our bed. Like, he's in our bed, tucked in on your side. And Mum's like, I'm gonna hold the door, you like run down to reception and get security. So I do. My pajamas are inside out, like I don't have any shoes on, my hair's like a mess, and I run down to reception. So I get to reception and I like tell them what's happened. I'm like, a man has come into our room and he's hopped in our bed, and they're like literally so frazzled and confused. Anyway, they come upstairs with me, they come in the door. Mum and I are like waiting out by the door, so we can't actually see what's happening, but we can hear everything that's happening. And we hear the security guards being like, sir, like trying to wake him up. So he was obviously asleep. Like, sir, like you're in the wrong room. Like, are you staying in this? Oh my God, I'm running out of time. I'm sorry, go to part 2.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further? Put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not gabbing though.
Guys, creepy story time. So this actually happened last night. My son came into my room like around 3 in the morning, and he said, hey mom, come into my room to sleep with me. Now I found this a little odd because usually like if he wants company, like he'll come into my room and then he'll just snuggle into my bed. But this time he said, come to my room. So I don't know why I didn't think twice. I grabbed my pillow, I grabbed my blanket, and I went into his room and I laid down on the bed. Now I fell asleep fairly quickly because, you know, it's 3 in the morning. But like around 3:15, I hear, my heart is beating so fast. I hear this. So I keep hearing it and I fully wake up and I keep hearing it and I'm awake. So I turn to him and I'm looking at him, right? And I'm like, and I see that his lips are closed and I keep hearing, mom, mom. And I'm looking at his lips and I'm like, am I sleeping? So I'm like fully awake. So now I'm sitting up and I'm hearing, mom, mom. So at this point I'm freaking out because I'm fully awake. My son's lips are closed. He wakes up, he looks at me and he gives me a kiss and he goes back to sleep. And I keep hearing, mom. So what I did is I grabbed my phone. I did not want to turn on the light. I did not want to go look down the hallway. I didn't want to do none of that. I turn on my phone and I started playing the Bible because I have the Bible app. I clicked on it and I just started playing the Bible really loud and it stopped. Okay, it stopped. So I fall back asleep and I start hearing it again after a couple minutes. And this time I'm freaking out. So here's where everything changes, okay? And now I'm laughing because I'm like, oh my God. So I hear my mom. Oh, I'm gonna run out of time. Okay. So I hear my mom snoring. I hear my mom snoring, and she's like, it was my mom snoring the whole time. The relief in my heart, y'all. The relief. Ah!
Y'all, I'm a little freaked out right now. So I'm sitting here on the couch about to put a movie on, okay? My daughter is standing in the hallway, and she looks in the kitchen. Then me and her make eye contact. Then she looks in the kitchen again. And I said, what? She tells me that she sees a black guy in the kitchen. The thing that comes to mind is stand up and go see what's in the kitchen. Because why are you saying you see a black guy in the kitchen when the only people that are home right now are me and my 3 babies, okay? My husband is at work. I said, what black guy? But as I'm saying, what black guy? I'm getting up to go walk into the kitchen, right? I walk in the kitchen. I walk towards the basement. Nobody in there, right? Walk out the kitchen. I said, Mama, what are you talking about? And she starts like describing what she saw. Like she points out the height of it, and it wasn't that much taller than her. She says it's black. It has big red eyes. The mouth is open. and it has big black hands. So immediately after she says that, I become genuinely curious. I'm like, okay, is this like her making up stuff in her imagination? Because we all know kids have an amazing imagination, okay? So I'm asking her questions like, where'd you see that? She points and says she saw it right next to the refrigerator. Okay, so where she was standing at in the hallway from where she pointed where she saw it at the refrigerator, they would be standing like right across from each other, right? So I go in the kitchen, I take a look around again, just basically letting her know like, okay, mommy is looking around, mommy's not scared, like there's nothing to be scared of. I let her know that I don't see nothing in there. She's still talking about it. So I tell her, I'm like, okay, we're not going to talk about it no more. And I immediately start praying over the house. And I tell whatever this thing is, it's not welcome here. We're protected and we're covered by the blood of Jesus Christ himself. This is not that type of household, okay? This is really not that type of household. I don't do that scary shit. I don't do the ghost shit. I don't do the entity, the demon shit. I don't do none of that, okay? So after I do that, and I'm feeling better because I prayed and, I've told this thing that it's not welcome here. Even if it's just a part of her imagination, I feel better knowing that I did that. And then it shows her that, okay, mommy is not scared. Like, mommy is praying over the house. Like, I'm protected. Everything is safe. Everything is good. Here, sit down, and I'm finna scroll and find a movie like I was doing before. She comes back into the living room and she says, Mom, I don't think that thing is leaving. And I said, why did you say that? And she said, because when I was helping Gio's my son, she was like, when I was helping Gio get his fruit snacks out the pantry, he was standing there again. I don't think he left. Really, as she says that, I stand up because that's my first reaction, to go in there, look again, pray again. But then I'm getting like my hair on my freaking arms start standing up. Like I'm like, it's like everything, like I'm getting chills, like my heart is starting to race. I'm like, bro, what is going on? Like, it's to the point where I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, but I can't let her know that I feel uncomfortable, right? I'm like, okay, mama, show me where you saw him again. Like, show me where you saw him the second time. And she shows me, and apparently this time he was standing next to the basement, like the stairs to get to the basement. So I'm like, okay. And at this point, my curiosity is at an all-time high, okay? Like, I'm curious. I want to know everything. Like, so I start asking her questions. I'm like, describe him to me again. Where do you see him at? Do you see him when mommy and daddy are sleeping? Because she says it's a guy. So I'm like, do you see him when mommy and daddy are sleeping? Does he talk? Like, I need to know everything. She says he doesn't talk. Okay? So a couple minutes go by and I ask her again. I'm like, does he talk to you? Like, does he say anything to you? She said, Mom, I already told you he doesn't talk. But then I asked her, like, have you ever seen this thing, like in videos, movies, like something? Have you ever seen it, like in front of you, like in a video, a movie, like something? Because then if she tells me that she's seen it in like a video or movie, then I know that it's like, it's not here, She tells me she's never seen it in a video or movie. I promise y'all, I've asked her that question like 6 times because I thought it would make me feel better, but every single time she says no, she hasn't. She only sees it here. Time goes on, and I'm just sitting there thinking about like, what other questions can I ask her so I can have more of the answers that I'm trying to get. My daughter is a little yapper, okay? She loves to come into the living room. She loves to just start random conversations. So I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like actively thinking about it, but I'm also trying to find a movie again, like I've been trying to do since the beginning of this. She comes in here, she's standing by the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is right here. And she's just like going on and on and on. She's talking about Santa, and then she starts talking about how there's like a black and red present. As soon as she says black and red, I'm automatically tuned in because the thing that she described was black and red. So I'm like, okay, let me listen, because if she's talking, like she's not talking to me. She's just like talking, like just yapping, like just letting her, like just talking, So I'm just like listening. Where I'm like, okay, I want this to be an active conversation. I want to have a conversation with her. So I join in on a conversation. Out of nowhere, she's like, Mom, do you remember our old place? And I said, yeah. And she said, I like that place better because it's not haunted. Like, do you think this place is haunted? And she was like, it is haunted. And I was like, I'm also going to be telling my husband about this when he gets home because I am genuinely freaked out. Like goosebumps, chills, heart racing. Like I'm not going to be calm until I tell him, until I get the answers I want, because this is the first time she's ever brought this to me. I'm freaked out, to say the least, okay?
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
My neighbor's dog keeps barking, so if you hear it, I'm so sorry. Also, I need to cut the bad habit of biting the skin off of my lips when I get nervous. I don't know how to stop that, okay? Anyway, this girl wrote into Relatos de la Noche because she says she keeps seeing her sister's doppelganger.
doppelganger. Am I saying it right? I hope I am. She said that when she first noticed this, she would see her sister go to a room, and then she would see her come from a different way, and she was like, what the hell, I just saw you go in there. And it kind of escalated from there. There was one time where her mom and her and another sister were in the living room, and she got a little cold, so she was gonna go upstairs and get a sweater. When she went up the stairs, she turned on the lights from the stairs only because she was just gonna grab a sweater really quickly. Once she grabs the sweater, she comes out to the hallway, and with the light from the stairs, she can see into her sister's room, and she said that she can clearly see her laying in bed. She mentioned that she did think it was weird that her sister was asleep, but she didn't really give it that much importance and just went back down the stairs with her other sister and mom. Once she went down there, she got chills all over her body because what she saw was that same sister that was asleep in her room on the kitchen table doing her homework. She did tell her mom then and there what she had seen upstairs, but the mom confirmed that this sister had been at the table for a while now with her headphones in, really focused on her homework, so there's no way that she was up there asleep. She said that after her mom told her that, she really didn't want to read too much into it, and she tried to justify it by just telling herself that maybe since only the stairs lights were on, she thought she saw somebody on her sister's bed. But she also knew that she was kind of trying to lie to herself just so she could feel better and not have a panic about it. However, a few days passed, and this is what the mom experienced. So before I start, I just want to let you know that from the mom's room, she could see 2 of the bedroom doors, and that's for the 2 daughters, the one that's telling us the story and the one that they keep seeing the doppelganger of. And at the end of that, there's also a restroom, which she can see all of this from her room. So the mom says that it was one night where she just couldn't fall asleep and she was tossing and turning, and while she couldn't fall asleep, she saw that the daughter, the doppelganger one, she got out of her room and went into the restroom. At this point, the mom had turned the TV on because she knew she just couldn't fall asleep, and after 15 minutes, she was like, wait, I have not seen her get out of that restroom, so she kind of got a little worried. So the mom goes to the restroom expecting to see her daughter there, but the lights were off. She opens the door and there is nobody in that restroom. So out of curiosity, she's like, I never saw her go back to her room, so let me check. She opens the daughter's bedroom door, and the girl is asleep on her bed. The mom was a little freaked out because there's no explanation as to why she saw her daughter go in, never saw her come out, and then her daughter is fast asleep on her bed. So back to the sister, because she's the one that's writing in this story. She says that something else happened, and it was probably the scariest thing that happened and the last time she saw her sister's doppelganger. It was New Year's Day, and the girl that's writing in, her boyfriend invited her entire family to go spend New Year's with his family, and they did. And they didn't end up coming back home until 4 in the morning. She said that when they got home, everybody went to their bedrooms because it was really late, and well, I guess early, but they were all really tired and they were gonna go to bed. She said before she went to sleep, she went to the restroom and was washing her face, taking her makeup off, and brushing her teeth. She mentions that she didn't close the door because it's not like she was in use the toilet or shower. She was just trying to do everything quickly to go to bed. And that was when she saw her sister pass by and go down the stairs. And she didn't really think anything of it until she realized that her sister never turned the stairs light on. She said that she walked out of the restroom not really thinking about anything but except for why she didn't turn the lights on, and by the time she got to the top of the stairs, her sister was already at the last step, and she lost sight of her when she went into the living room. Once she got to the living room, even though she lost sight of her, she again thought it was weird that she hasn't turned any lights on. She mentions that since her and her sister were little, they always accompanied each other downstairs, or like they never like to go down there alone. They always keep each other's company, right? So that's what she thought in that moment. She was like, well, let me go with her because I don't know what she's doing, and you know, maybe she needs my company. She's about to go down the stairs as she hears her sister's voice behind her say, "What are you looking at? What are you doing?" Her real sister had just came out of the bedroom, her bedroom, asking her what the hell she had been looking at and where is she going. She said that she stayed frozen in that moment because she was just about to go down there. She saw her sister walk down those steps, and her sister had just opened her own bedroom door and said, "What are you doing?" I wouldn't even know what the fuck to do. She said that she wants to blame it on maybe drinking on New Year's, but like, no, because she clearly saw her pass by that door, like saw her go down the stairs and lost sight of her when she was going to the living room. So she doesn't know what to think about it, but she doesn't think it was her drinking that caused her to see that, you know? By the way, This happened in January of this year, 2024. This is something that happened recently. She says that she hasn't seen it again since, but she doesn't know what to make of it. Like, is it a spirit or is it like a true doppelganger of her sister? But it just freaks her out. I'm not gonna lie, if that was me and my sister had just come out of her bedroom, which one is the real one? At this point, I don't trust anyone. Nobody. I'm gonna lock myself in my room. But also, the fact that it happened this year and more things could possibly happen other than that, I would never trust my sister again. I can't. If I see her, like, is it you or is it not you? Anyway, what do you guys think about it? I'm gonna put this story here with the time that it starts. It's from Relatos de la Noche, and of course it is 1,000 times scarier in Spanish.
I truly don't get how someone just disappears in the woods, only for their remains to be found years later, not far from where they went missing. And what's even worse is when no one can figure out how they died or what happened to them. That's what happened to Jared Audadero in 1999. He ran ahead of the group that he was with while hiking in the Roosevelt National Forest, and within 80 feet of his group down the trail, he vanished. No one knew what happened to him until 4 years later when his fractured skull and one of his teeth were found, deep in the mountains, but not horribly far from where he went missing. This is genuinely such a heartbreaking and disturbing case, and despite his remains being found, what exactly happened to him is still unsolved, so let's talk about it. Jared Audadero was 3 years old when he mysteriously disappeared and died on October 2nd, 1999. Jared lived with his dad Alan and his older sister Jocelyn in Colorado. His mom and dad divorced, and both Jocelyn and Jared lived with Alan, who primarily raised them. Because of his divorce and being a single dad, Alan decided to join the Christian Singles Network group, which was a local religious club in Colorado. In the months leading up to Jared's disappearance, Alan really relied on this group to help out, and they would all go and do group activities together. So with that being said, this brings us to October 2nd, 1999. Alan and his two kids, Jared and Jocelyn, were staying at the Padre River Resort, which Alan owned along with his brother. Also staying at the resort were members of the Christian Singles Network group, who really wanted to take Jared and Jocelyn to the nearby state fish hatchery in the Roosevelt National Forest. The kids were a little anxious to go, and at first Alan wasn't going to let them, but the group reassured him that they were only going to the fish hatchery and straight back. After much persistence, Alan agreed to let them go while he stayed behind at the resort. He figured they would be okay and nothing bad would happen, but that was not the case. And what happened after this has never really been explained. So off the group went, along with Jared and Jocelyn. There were 11 group members on this excursion to be exact. The weather was nice and everyone was having a good time, so instead of going straight back to the resort like they said, the group changed their minds and decided to hike up the Big South Trail, which was 15 miles west of the resort. Why they changed their plans last minute, no one really knows, but it's assumed the weather was just really nice and they didn't want the day to end just yet. As they started hiking up this trail, the group kind of split into two, one faster and the other slower than the rest. At some point, Jared ran ahead of both of the groups. Why he did this, no one really knows. At some point, he stopped to talk to two nearby fishermen, and according to them, Jared asked them if there were any bears nearby. The encounter seemed normal, and they didn't think much about Jared being alone because about 80 feet down the trail, they could see the Christian Singles Network group. The last time Jared was ever seen alive was by these two fishermen, and he was walking really fast up the trail to some nearby campsites. Not long after this, though, members of the group and Jared's sister heard a loud scream, but they couldn't tell why the scream had occurred because, according to them, some said that it sounded like someone was being attacked, while others said it sounded like a playful scream. Regardless, though, after they heard the scream, Jared vanished. The group then spent the next hour scouring the area looking for him, but they never found him. So they all went back to the resort and told Alan about his disappearance, and the police were quickly called. It's really heartbreaking to picture, but Alan was seen completely just breaking down. He was beating on his own chest and repeatedly yelling, quote, "They lost my baby." End quote. A search and rescue team launched a massive search for Jared, and Alan basically led it. The authorities that were called in all thought that they were going to find Jared. They thought that he was just hiding somewhere, and within a few hours, he would be found. The lead investigator on the case even went back to his car just before midnight that night to take a nap, and he told the other officers to wake him up when they found him. But no one ever came to wake him up, and by morning, Jared still wasn't found. The search for Jared was the largest ever in Larimer County history. They searched every inch of the mountains around where Jared could have possibly been, and even in the Big South River. And as each night passed, Alan was out on the trail in the dead of night yelling for his son. But absolutely no trace of Jared was found. The search was made difficult for a few reasons though. One being the terrain, as it was a pretty rugged area. And during the search, one of the helicopters from the search and rescue team actually crashed while they were looking for Jared. After they fueled up, the helicopter made its way back over the mountains, but somewhere along the way it stalled out. And after falling 100 feet, it crashed into the Big South Trail. Thankfully no one died, but everyone was severely injured, so this hindered the investigation. Jared's disappearance also caused a crazy media frenzy. Firstly because it was like he just vanished into thin air, but also because just 3 years prior, John Benet Ramsey also disappeared and was later found dead under mysterious circumstances in the same state. The two very obviously didn't have anything to do with each other, but now you had two young kids go missing and die under eerie circumstances, so it was just a magnet for media attention. So in this entire search, the only clue that was ever found was some mountain lion tracks right next to Jared's tracks on the trail that day. According to authorities, they found some cougar prints coming down the trail towards Jared's prints, and when the two prints came together, Jared's prints disappeared. Because of this, police suspected that he may have been attacked by a mountain lion. Even so, they kept searching for Jared, but after a while of finding nothing, the search eventually ended and his case went cold. But then, 4 years later, in the summer of 2003, his partial remains were found. It was early May when two hikers in the Padre Canyon area stumbled across some suspicious clothing that appeared to be of a child's. They found a brown fleece sweater, some blue pants, and a pair of white Tarzan kid sneakers, which was exactly what Jared was wearing when he disappeared. Police were quickly called in, and it didn't take them long to find human remains nearby. They found a large piece of fractured human skull and a molar tooth. And after DNA testing, this was confirmed to be Jared's remains. Unfortunately, there weren't enough remains found to be able to determine his cause or manner of death. So as of today, what happened to Jared remains unsolved and undetermined. And although what happened to him remains a mystery, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that Jared was attacked, killed, and then eaten by a mountain lion. Investigators did find mountain lion tracks next to his on the trail, but there are a few things that don't add up about this theory. Experts on big cats in Colorado stated that a mountain lion would have attacked Jared's stomach first with the intent of getting his internal organs. But Jared's sweater was found, and there were no signs of an animal attack on it. It wasn't ripped or shredded or anything like that, and there was no blood on it either. And adding to this mystery is the fact that when Jared's pants were found, they were found inside out, which an animal wouldn't have been able to do. And what's even weirder is that although his remains were found near the Big South Trail, they were found pretty far up it and deeper into the mountains, and Jared's shoes were in pretty decent condition. They had no sign of being dragged by a mountain lion, and according to experts, it would have been nearly impossible for him to have been dragged that deep into the mountains by a lion without them being destroyed. Kind of tacking onto this theory though is that maybe he just fell and got hurt, eventually dying of exposure. But this theory has been largely ruled out by authorities. The next big theory is that Jared was abducted and killed by someone on the trail that day, and whoever did it exposed of his clothes, and this would line up with his pants being turned inside out like they were. The only reported damage to them was from rodents and birds who chipped away pieces of them to weave into their nearby nests. A lot of people were interviewed after Jared disappeared, including friends, family, and all members of the Christian Singles Network group, but police found no evidence tying any of them to Jared's disappearance. This doesn't rule out a stranger abduction though, which is entirely possible. So even after all these years, we still don't know exactly what happened to Jared. After his body was found, Alan kept his remains rather than cremating or burying them. He created a shrine out of them in Jared's old bedroom, which sat untouched exactly as he left it all those years ago. He laid his skull on top of his favorite toys, and he said he did this for religious reasons. Alan went on to say, "I know I will see Jared again one day, and I will ask him, 'Jared, what happened?' And he's going to look at me and say, 'Dad, does it really matter?'" End quote. Alan went on to write a book about his son's disappearance, which I haven't read yet, but I plan to. I feel like I have to mentally prepare myself first because I know that this is going to be really heartbreaking. Sadly, just a couple of months ago, Alan unexpectedly passed away in his home at the age of 67. I hope that he is finally reunited with Jared and that Jared's sister can find some peace in what has happened. But it's now been 26 years, and whatever happened to Jared in those mountains remains a mystery. There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of Utah. Let's talk about it. This is 21-year-old Elizabeth Green. She was last seen walking to work along a dirt road in Callio, Utah, which is an extremely remote area in northern Snake Valley. Like, there really isn't much out there, and the area she went missing is roughly 3 hours from any major city. Elizabeth had just started a new job at a remote ranch, and she was walking there that day, but never made it, and it's almost like she vanished into thin air. She was reported missing to the police later that day, and they began looking for her right away. Authorities have searched the area around her home and the ranch that she was going to work at, including the route that she would have taken to get there, but no trace of Elizabeth has been found. Police searched the ranch, which has not been publicly named, just one day after Elizabeth was reported missing, but according to them, they didn't find anything suspicious. The rancher said that she never made it to the ranch that day and that he had no contact with her, so it's left authorities wondering what truly happened to her that day. Police have tried pinging her phone, but they aren't able to get a connection, and they've searched all of her electronic devices, but they've all turned up nothing. There's been no activity on her social media accounts since that day either. Her mom thinks that Elizabeth could have possibly been picked up that day, but she just doesn't know by who. There's also a possibility that she arranged to have someone pick her up, but they didn't show, which could have led to Elizabeth trying to walk through the remote desert by herself. According to her family, she does suffer from some mental health issues and has ran away before, but no matter what, she's always stayed in contact with her family and she's always come back within a day. She would never just up and leave like this. Just based on the circumstances, police believe that she's in immediate danger. Like I mentioned before, Callio is extremely remote and so far away from any major city, so the fact that she just mysteriously disappeared and left behind no trace in a matter of hours is just terrifying. It's now been over a month and Elizabeth is still missing. With the summer weather coming up, we need to find out what really happened to her that day. These are some of her characteristics and what she was last seen wearing. If you have any information about this case, please contact the number on the screen.
The night I started believing in the paranormal. Hi y'all, I'm watching the most recent podcast and heard y'all were looking for some spooky ghost stories, and I've got one that still creeps me out to this day. Sorry in advance for the long post, but I want to get all the details in. LOL. Now, just to preface, this story happened a few years ago when I was still in high school. I grew up in a small town, so it was often hard for us young, angsty teens to find things to do. Me, now 21 female, and my best friend, also 21 female, our usual Friday night consisted of driving around aimlessly trying to find something to do. This night, it was me, my best friend, who I'll call Cindy, Cindy's boyfriend, Aaron, and Aaron's best friend, Zach. Now, on to the story. We were doing our usual routine of driving around the nearby big city when Aaron decided to call up his other friend who lived nearby. Now, this friend I'd never met before, but Aaron said he lived in this small mountain town close to where we were driving. I'd never heard of this town, but it is known for its history in being an old copper mining town. The friend didn't answer, but we decided to drive up that way anyways, as the friend had a cool car Aaron and Zach wanted to look at. Big car guys. We start driving up there, and mind you, it's close to 2 a.m. at this point. We had driven on dark roads throughout this entire night, and the vibes were all good. We're driving on this dark, barren road when we pass under a bridge. Immediately, I become overwhelmed by this eerie feeling. Something just felt off. I thought it was just me experiencing this, as everyone else was talking and joking about, so I brushed it off. By the time we get up to the town, Cindy was passed out in the passenger seat. I was sat behind Cindy, and Zach was sat behind Aaron, who was driving. The second we start to see houses, we all collectively agree that something about this town was just off. The streets looked impeccably clean and polished, the sidewalks all completely smooth, as if the concrete had just been laid. I had made an offhand comment about how it felt like we were transported to another time. The boys in the car collectively agreed with me, all of us acknowledging how it felt like we had passed through a portal straight to the 1930s. We continued on the drive, making jokes in an attempt to lighten the strange atmosphere we had stumbled upon. At this point, I chalked it up to the dark night and the fact that the whole town was likely asleep. Then we see the park. Now here's the thing about this park. It wasn't a full-on park, literally just a plot of grass with huge ass trees. The road allowed you to loop completely around the park, and it was absolutely empty when we first arrived. Aaron makes a comment about the park, saying he had taken pictures of his car in it before. Then he decides to drive around the park and show us where the photos were taken. As we begin the loop around this park, I feel this creepy feeling begin to intensify. The best way to describe it is it was like a heavy weight pushing down on the air in the car. At this point, it's close to summer, so all the windows are down as we're cruising along. Once we get close to the end of the loop, I spot a couple of deer outside my window. This was the first and only sign of life we saw the entire time we were there. No people, no other animals, no cars, just 3 deer. Aaron pulls over so we can get a better look at them and then decides to call his friend again to see if he would answer. At this point, I'm watching these deer and trying to distract myself from this seemingly unwarranted anxiety I was feeling. While Aaron was on the phone, Cindy was still passed out, and Zach is staring out his open window, which faced the park. Not long into us being parked here, does Zach start to yell and frantically try to roll up his window. Both Aaron and I were shocked by Zach's sudden screaming, and both go look at whatever had freaked Zach out so much. When I look out Zach's window, I saw something that I still cannot explain to this day. There, sitting beside one of the large trees, was a pure white figure. So white it looked like it was glowing. I got a pretty good glimpse at this figure, and it almost seemed blurry, but you could clearly make out the shape of a hooded person. It appeared to be kneeling with its head bowed, almost like it was praying. At this point, Zach is screaming for Aaron to get us the fuck out of there. All I could do was freeze in fear and stare at this figure sat alone in the park.
Did anyone else see that story of that lady on TikTok? Wait, let me explain. So this lady said that she's been married for 8 years and that her husband is deployed overseas all the way in Germany. She says that she barely sees her husband. He comes home like 2 or 3 times a year, and when he's home, he only stays for about 2 or 3 weeks. So for the last 2 years, she says she's been feeling real lonely, and she decided to go out and cheat on her husband. She said that she went and she had a one-night stand, and this one-night stand was so good that it turned into an every-night stand. And she recently found out she's pregnant. And clearly this is not her husband's because her husband's overseas, so the man that she's been sleeping with got her pregnant. So now, her and this dude have been messing with each other for 2 years, back and forth. Mind you, she has 3 kids with her husband. She said at first they were getting hotels and stuff, to keep her anonymous. But then, after 2 years, she got a little comfortable, and now she's allowed to go to his house. He's still not allowed to come to hers because, she got kids, and he don't got no kids. Usually she goes over there, and, she's not really paying attention to what's in her house because she has no real feelings for this man. She just, got lonely. But one day, as she's walking in, she decides to pay a little bit close attention to the pictures on his wall. And as she's looking over the pictures on her wall, guess who she sees? Her husband. So now she's freaking out because she's like, how is a picture of my husband and him in this frame on the wall? Of course, she starts panicking. She has to get to the bottom of this, but she doesn't know how to bring it up without saying, like, how do you know this man? Because this is my husband. So after a while, she decides, like, I'm just going to ask around, like, oh, who's this? Oh, that's my grandma. Oh, who that? That's my uncle. So who is this? Y'all would never believe what the man said. The man gonna say, oh, that's my brother. She was thinking, like, there's no way because she's been married to him for 8 years and he's never been in none of the family functions. Like, she never even heard of her husband speak of him. So she asked, oh, is this from your dad's side? He said, yes, from my dad's side. So that makes sense because, the dad got a whole bunch of other kids. So it makes sense to why, she never really seen him. But y'all, the man she's been sleeping with 2 years is her husband's brother. But the story doesn't stop there. So he's like, yeah, that's my brother. I'm real close with him. She's all confused. Like, He starts pulling out pictures. He pulls out a picture. He said, yeah. So she's like, oh, so is he married? He was like, yeah, he is. To his wife in Germany. Yeah, they got 2 kids over there. He has a nice little family in Germany. Y'all, why the man start pulling up pictures of her husband with his wife, his new wife in Germany, and their kids? Mind you, she's pregnant by this man, who she just found out is her husband's brother. She also just found out that her husband got a whole family in Germany. So now she don't know what to do because she's been cheating on her husband clearly has been cheating on her, and now there's a baby about to be involved. Hey, that was just a story I seen, but what would y'all do?
How does a grown man disappear after having abdominal surgery just to be found in the hospital ceiling nearly 2 weeks later? And is it coincidence that another man in a similar situation also ended up in the ceiling of a hospital in the same country? When 61-year-old Tedetiki went in for surgery at the Stellenbosch Hospital, he was understandably nervous about this procedure. He underwent the abdominal surgery on October 5th, 2017, and everything went just as expected. However, during his recovery, his nurse left the room for what she claimed was mere seconds in order to grab some fresh linens. But as she returned to the room, Tedetiki was nowhere to be found. The nurse frantically searched for her patient, positive that he couldn't have gotten far. Because of the seriousness of his surgery, he was bedridden, left almost completely unable to move independently. She called his family to ask if he had somehow returned home, sending his family into a panic. His family rushed to the hospital, searching the hospital grounds themselves before reporting him missing. The initial search for Tedetiki was unsuccessful. It was as if he had just vanished into thin air, but nobody could explain how. 13 days later, as a construction crew worked on hospital renovations, they discovered Tedetiki's body in an isolated area of the hospital ceiling. An area that's incredibly difficult to reach, even for a completely capable person, much less for somebody healing from major abdominal surgery, or for somebody attempting to lift a grown man above their heads by themselves. Police reported that Tedetiki's autopsy somehow pointed to natural causes of death, but seemingly never handed that report over. His family showed a lack of faith in the investigation, saying that they were told that nothing more could be done in his case, and it remains that way to this day. Similarly, just 2 years later, on May 10, 2019, a 53-year-old construction worker named Sandil was admitted to the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital. Sandil had been helping a neighbor with a house repair when a wall collapsed, breaking his right femur. After arriving at the hospital and being assessed, Sandil's doctor suggested a transfer to a different hospital for treatment. But before the transfer could take place, Sandil had disappeared. His nurse went to check in on him and found him missing. The staff immediately began searching for him and subsequently reported him missing when they were unable to locate him. Weeks later, hospital staff would begin complaining about what they called an unbearable stench. Shortly after, a staff member would find a leak dripping down from the ceiling into the hospital storeroom. On May 25th, Sandil's decomposing body would be discovered in the hospital's ceiling. How did he get in the ceiling after breaking the biggest bone in his body? Sandil's family demanded answers, reporting that they were initially denied the ability to view his body. In both cases, the men had conditions that would prevent them from moving comfortably. How were they able to walk around freely in their state without staff or hospital visitors noticing? Not to mention the effort it would take for them to somehow climb up into the ceiling. Not much can be found on either of these cases, and both remain unsolved to this day.
Hello, I got another story time, girl, so pick up the phone. Okay, we back on FaceTime. So this story is going to be about Sarah. So Sarah's family is pretty much like me and how I raise my kids. I don't do sleepovers. Kids can't come to my house. You can't have no sleepover. I don't really do after school shit. My kids really don't go outside. I don't let them play with other kids. You can't go in nobody's motherfucking house. I don't play that shit. And that's how Sarah's family was. So Sarah's family was always like this. You can't do shit. You go to school, you bring your ass home. You want to play, you go play with the motherfucking cousins. Anyway, so now Sarah grandma done became a bus driver for the district. So now Sarah grandma is the bus driver. So, you know, that's kind of cool. It's my grandma. Okay, we ride the bus. So now that Sarah grandma is the bus driver, now she's getting in cool with people at school. So she makes friends with this one nigga at school. He's cool or whatever. Him and the grandma hit it off. Nothing like crazy. Just really genuine friendship. The grandma really liked him. He seemed like a genuine man. He had a wife. He had a daughter. Everything seemed like it was great. It was cool, whatever. So because Sarah's grandma is now friends with this man and they have a daughter and the daughter is in the same class as Sarah, so now they kind of like, okay, well, I know them. You know, I got to feel for them. You know, these people cool. So finally, Sarah gets to go spend the night over at the grandma's friend's house with the daughter or whatever. So she's over there, whatever. Everything is cool. So they're little girls. Let's say they're maybe, we're going to give them 10. They're about 10 years old. So, you know, as children do, which I really don't understand this part because I don't let, if anybody do come to my house, you don't come in my bedroom. That's weird. Unless I invite you into my bedroom, that's weird. But anyway, these kids, they exploring the house because they're kids or whatever. They're just getting into shit. So Sarah and the little girl end up making their way to the mama and the daddy's room. We're going to call the daddy Dan. So they up in Dan and his wife room, and Sarah notices that on the wall there are so many pictures of naked girls and women. They're naked, and Dan and his wife really don't have no excuse for this besides they like it. So it's just like, okay, whatever, let me try to stay in the child's place and me get the fuck up out of here, because I should not be in here in the first place. Boom. So they get out of their fucking bedroom and shit right there. But Dan's daughter tells Sarah, like, you know, my parents got this closet in their room and they keep it locked. I don't know what the fuck in this closet, but they keep it locked. Let's go ahead and be dumb kids again and go fucking explore and look for shit we ain't got no business looking for. So they like, okay, we gonna try to break into the closet, because obviously the closet is locked. So Sarah and Dan's daughter, they try to break into the closet. They can't get into the closet, but they do get caught. They get caught by Dan and his wife trying to break into the closet. So they're like, oh, hell nah. Y'all, this whole sleepover shit, it's not gonna work out. Sorry, Sarah, you can't come back over here. And Dan's daughter could never go to Sarah's house. She could never go to Sarah's house and spend the night at Sarah, go play. She could never go over there for shit. Only Sarah could come over there. But now that's out the way. That shit dead too. Y'all, come to find out that all of a sudden, they're in a small town. Now, all of a sudden, all this news and shit break out because they finding body parts and shit in the city. Now, nobody thinking nothing of this. Everybody just kind of like, wow, this is a tragedy. Oh my God, we finding some lady body parts all over the city, yada, yada, yada. So, Sarah grandma like, oh, this is crazy. I'm glad we don't let Sarah go no motherfucking where. So, now they done figure out who the body parts belong to. So the body parts belong to this lady or whatever. And then they come back and they like, okay, we can't find nobody related to this lady besides her children. So she got a couple kids or whatever throughout the city. So they get in contact with all the kids. Now, one of the kids ends up being Dan's wife. Y'all remember Dan? One of the kids of the lady who body parts they find all over the city is Dan's wife. So Dan's wife is now going to the police station. She getting questions and shit like, you know, what the fuck going on? Why you ain't put your mama missing? What happened to your mama? Now, between Dan's wife and her other siblings, shit is shady. Shit is not sounding good. It's sounding bad. But they really don't have no hard evidence to, like, really get Dan's wife and her siblings or whatever. So they just still doing the investigation. But now Sarah grandma is like, what the fuck kind of shit is going on? So Sarah grandma go over there. She want to go, you know, being nosy. She want to go over there and knock on the door. She knock on the door. Ain't nobody answering the door. So, okay, whatever. She like, whatever. Maybe they're not home right now. But next thing Sarah grandma know, the police is over there breaking on the door. And now they done went in because they got a warrant. They went in. Dan and his family are gone. But they left the house exactly how it was. They left all the furniture. Obviously they took the little naked girl pictures. They took everything out the closet. But as far as like beds, couches, plates, dishes, and everything, it's still there. So these people is on the motherfucking run, and it's looking like Dan and his wife and her siblings, child, they done unalived their mama, cut her up in pieces and put her over all over the city in little trash bags. And now Dan and his family is gone with the wind, girl.
She carried a black trash bag in both hands, walked towards the dumpsters, threw it in, got back in her car, and drove off. But inside that trash bag wasn't only trash. Inside was her newborn baby, wrapped in a towel, umbilical cord still attached, left in a dumpster. Big warning at the beginning of this video, we're talking about a child. You guys already know what it is. Your mental health is #1 priority, always has been, always will be. If you think that listening to this is going to harm your mental health in any way, shape, or form, I mean it when I say skip this video. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in my next one. I love you. Alexis Avila is from Hobbs, New Mexico. That's where she lived with her family. She's the baby of the family and has 2 older siblings, 1 sister, 1 brother. And from what I could find, her childhood was completely what people would call normal and happy. She was a happy kid. She was loved. She was supported. As a little girl, she played sports. She got along with her siblings, got along with everyone at school. It wasn't until she really grew up and got into her teenage years that she began having a hard time. I think you could say that a lot of her behavior was what most people would consider to be normal teenage behavior. She had a lot of big mood swings. Her mood was completely unpredictable. She was also the type to feel everything very intensely, to feel her emotions very deeply. As a teenager, she also began pushing her parents' boundaries, arguing often, questioning them, and just pushing pushing their buttons really, and in turn that caused her relationship with her parents to be pretty rocky. She definitely was the kind of girl who leaned a lot more on her friends than she did her family. She would open up to her friends about what she had going on in her school life, her love life, her social life, all the things, but when it came to her parents, she wasn't likely to open up to them really at all. And I think at times that left her parents feeling quite distant from her. And all of that isn't completely unheard of, but there were little things that made her parents question if there was something deeper about her behavior going on or with her behavior. And they found out that there was. Alexis was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder. Unfortunately, she wouldn't be officially diagnosed with that until later on down the line. So even though the effects of having bipolar disorder were very much showing through her personality when she was just starting off in high school, they didn't know what it was, so her diagnosis was left untreated. In March of 2020, Alexis was 16 years old and going into her sophomore year of high school when she switched schooling from in-person to online, because we all know what happened in 2020. And for a person like Alexis, who already had a hard time bonding with her parents, being locked in her house 24/7 with limited ways to distract herself was going to prove to be very tough. By the time she got back into school in person, she was a junior in high school and she got into a relationship with a 16-year-old boy named Steven. And in April of 2021, the couple found out that they were pregnant. I guess they took a pregnancy test as some sort of joke. I don't know what they were doing, but it was supposed to be a joke, but they saw that they actually were pregnant and they panicked. Alexis never wanted to be a teen mom. She freaked out, he freaked out, but then that was that. They find out that Alexis is growing a human being inside of her, and what do? They freak out for a few minutes and then they forget about it, I guess. Or they pretend to, because they were really acting like it was no big deal. Maybe showing a defense mechanism, I don't know, but they literally did not want to talk about it. One of Alexis's friend who knew her from freshman year would later say that she had heard her mention a pregnancy, saying, quote, "I heard her talk about being pregnant around late September, early October. She never expressed that it was a bad thing that she was pregnant," end quote. Although apparently her and Steven never talked about it. I would like to think that they did, but I really don't think they did. And in Alexis's head, she always knew that keeping the baby was not going to be an option. She wasn't ready to become a mom in any way, shape, or form. She also wasn't ready or willing to tell her family, and the very few friends that she did tell, she also let know that she wasn't planning on keeping it. A couple of months passed, and then there is trouble in paradise. The puppy love that was once there between Alexis and Steven was no longer, and it became so bad between them, to the point that police officers got involved, and Steven was not allowed to go to Alexis' house ever again. This sent Alexis into a chaotic, unstable state of mind. She was depressed, she was furious with Steven, but then she was standing up for him. She would get mad at him, but then she would get mad at her mom, and then the anger would just turn into sadness. It was bad all around, and Alexis ended up running away, but when she returned home, she just completely shut down, still not sharing with her parents the fact that she was pregnant and still ignoring that situation altogether. And by August of 2021, Alexis and Steven called it quits on their relationship for good. That's also when she tells him the very, very sad news that she had lost the baby. Was that true? No. And was she lying to the baby's father? 1,000,000% yes. And by the end of 2021, only getting closer and closer to her due date, Alexis had managed to somehow, someway successfully hide her pregnancy from everyone around her. She was still ignoring it. She wasn't doing absolutely anything to address it, nothing to take care of herself or her baby. And according to her parents, they did notice that she was putting on weight, but they didn't really think much of it. She found out that she was pregnant in April of 2021. On January 7th of 2022, Alexis Avila gave birth on her own at home in secret in the bathroom. She woke up in the middle of the night because she was experiencing severe pain, went to the toilet, and delivered her baby. Did she wake anyone up? No. Did she tell anyone? No. Instead, the following morning, she wrapped up her newborn baby boy in a towel, grabbed a black trash bag full of trash, and put both the bag of trash and her baby wrapped in the towel in the back of her car. She drove around for a little while until she ended up driving to a big dumpster in a parking lot of a JCPenney, and then she grabbed the bag full of trash, opened it up, grabbed her baby wrapped in the towel, placed the baby in the trash bag on top of the trash, and tied it sealed tightly. Then she pulled up right next to the dumpster and tossed the closed bag with her baby in the trash, dumped it, and drove off. It's sick. It's vile. It's so disturbing. Not to mention, New Mexico has a safe haven law, meaning that under the law, a parent can surrender an infant that is 90 days or younger at a hospital, at a fire station, at any law enforcement agency. They could drop off the baby, no questions asked, and they would be protected from criminal prosecution for abandonment. Alexis could have dropped off her baby at any one of these locations to give him a chance, to give a loving family a chance at having a baby, which a lot of people would consider to be a miracle. But did she do that? No. She treated her baby as nothing more than a piece of trash. Alexis drove off, went home, and continued acting like nothing had ever happened. However, at 8 p.m. that same night, a group of 3 people, dumpster divers, went to the same dumpster in that JCPenney parking lot, and they were there to dig through the trash to see if they could find anything of value. They're digging through the trash when they hear crying, and they assume that it's coming from an animal. They keep digging until they find the black bag, pull it out, and that's when they make the horrifying discovery of finding the newborn baby boy who had been inside of that trash bag in the cold in the dumpsters for well over 5 hours or more at this point. And as you can imagine, they were sick to their stomachs. The girl in the group immediately picked up the baby and held him in her arms. He was still alive, luckily somehow, because it was freezing outside and he was clearly very weak but still crying. He was cold to the touch. The umbilical cord was still attached, and one of the guys called 911 to report what they just found. It is so sad. It is so incredibly sad. When paramedics arrived, the baby boy was still breathing, but he was struggling to be able to because he was so cold. His skin had completely turned blue and purple by that point. He was showing signs of hypothermia and low oxygen. He also had a cut on his head, assuming that that was from when the bag was thrown and his little head made contact with the metal dumpster. The baby was rushed to the hospital, and the doctors tried everything in their power to make sure that this little baby boy made it through the night, while a different group of officers worked on identifying who had done this. It did not take them long to identify Alexis Avila because her name was in a piece of trash that was found in the trash bag that the baby was found in. And they also quickly got a hold of the CCTV footage and only further confirmed who she was by running the license plate number. They showed up to her house. Her parents answered the door and said that Alexis could not come to the door because she was feeling really sick and she was in bed. But officers were not having it. They forced her to get out of bed and get to the station for questioning. And the interrogation of that is really something. Alexis is really something, and I mean that in a negative way. She does say the story of giving birth in the bathroom. She does tell him that, but she says that she found out that she was pregnant yesterday, as in one day before giving birth. Lie number 1. They say, interesting, a friend of yours actually told us that you were pregnant back in March and that you told this friend named Walker. And Alexis goes, no, I don't know a Walker. Lie number 2, she says that after giving birth, she was very, very scared and she didn't know what to do, but she does admit to putting her baby in the trash and then in the dumpster, saying, quote, I put it in the bag, I took it to the car, I drove around and I just didn't know what to do and I just put it in there, end quote. Alexis did try to defend herself by saying, quote, I'm the baby, end quote, and repeatedly stating that she had just turned 18 as if that was reason enough to excuse her actions. Steven, the father of the baby, was made aware of the situation, and you could imagine the shock on his face when he found out that Alexis had lied about losing the baby. But by a true miracle, the baby boy made it through the night. He needed a ton of love and care and attention because he was so close to not surviving, but he did. And he was placed in the custody of Steven, and him alongside of his family had been taking care of him. And it warms my heart to be able to tell you guys and to know that the little boy will grow up and hopefully live a very long and happy and healthy life. And I hope that he's able to accomplish every single dream he ever has. Alexis Avila was charged with 2 charges, and she was taken to court where again she made a fool out of herself by trying to say she didn't know any better because she was freshly 18. In my opinion, it was clear that she showed absolutely no remorse. If anything, she felt bad for herself and not her child. She pled not guilty but was found guilty and sentenced to 16 years in prison. But guess what? Her lawyers appealed. And she was let out on bail in 2023 pending her appeal. But now, on Monday, November 17th, the New Mexico Court of Appeals ruled that her conviction still stands and that she is to be sent back into custody. So that was earlier in this month. The latest update that I could find was from an attorney general making a statement that reads, quote, my office alongside District Attorney Deanna Luce prosecuted this case, and we are extremely fortunate that the child survived this horrific ordeal. My office will now focus on providing the support necessary to get Mrs. Avila remanded back into custody, end quote. I'm not sure how long the process takes. I hope that she is back in custody as we speak because I think that she deserves to be. Evil, straight up evil. And it's so sad to think that there are human beings in the world that do this. That is all I have for today's case. Thank you guys for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
One of the most terrifying things to me is when someone vanishes into thin air with absolutely no logical explanation as to what happened to them, especially when they disappear in a short amount of time in an extremely short distance. I am a firm believer that people don't just disappear, but that's what happened to 20-year-old Ryan Stuka, and the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are just really bizarre, so Let's talk about it. Ryan Stuka was just 1 month shy of his 21st birthday when he mysteriously disappeared on February 17th, 2018. He lived in Beaumont, Alberta, where the rest of his family lived. But on December 1st, 2017, he decided to move to Sun Peaks, which is a really tiny ski resort village in British Columbia. He had never left home before, but he was really excited for this move because he was moving with his best friend to go and do one of the things he loved most, which was snowboarding. He and his friend were going to spend the season snowboarding and working as lift operators at the Sun Peaks Village ski resort. And although he was a little nervous to leave home, he was really excited. He was only going to be there for a few months anyway, as he'd go back home to Alberta in the spring. But before he got the chance to go back home, he would disappear, leaving behind no clues. And what exactly happened that winter night has never been explained. So the day before Ryan disappeared, which was Friday, February 16th, he worked the full day and then went to his home in Sun Peaks, which he shared with a few roommates. Later that night, Ryan and a few of his friends/roommates went to a silent disco event that was being hosted at a local pub. And then after, they all went to a house party not far away, located on Burfield Drive. A few hours would go by, everyone was having fun, and then at 2 a.m., one of Ryan's roommates got tired and decided to head home. They all lived just a short walk away from this house party, and it wasn't unusual for them to just walk home. A few minutes later, another one of Ryan's roommates decided to get up and leave the party, also heading home. And this roommate thought Ryan was right behind him. At 2:10 a.m., Ryan was seen standing up, and he was believed to have been putting on his coat and shoes to go home as well. But after this, Ryan vanished. This was the last time he was ever seen alive. He never made it home that night, and when he didn't show up for work the next day, his roommates and friends knew something was horribly wrong. Ryan never missed work, and the fact that he wasn't answering their calls and texts, they just knew something wasn't quite right. They tried looking at security footage and called everyone Ryan knew in the area as well as local hospitals, but nobody knew where Ryan was or what happened to him. It was at this point that his roommates called his parents to let him know that Ryan was missing, and then they reported him missing to the police at 8:47 p.m. His parents lived over 9 hours away, but when they heard Ryan was missing, they packed their bags and immediately took off for Sun Peaks. The Kamloops RCMP launched a massive search for Ryan involving tracking dogs, drones, infrared cameras, snowmobiles, and helicopters. And on top of police searching, Ryan's parents and hundreds of volunteers diligently searched the entire village, but absolutely no trace of Ryan was ever found. It's believed that Ryan left the house party that night and started to walk home, but the biggest question is what happened to him in that short distance. It wasn't unusual for Ryan to go out with his friends and socialize, and since he didn't know the area super well, he never just wandered off without them. So for him to just vanish off the face of the earth like this was scary and overall just very strange. At the beginning of the investigation, police thought maybe he had been drinking at the party and became too intoxicated, maybe passing out somewhere outside, which was obviously very time sensitive, because the night Ryan went missing, the weather dropped to below -14 degrees Fahrenheit and had snowed about 8 inches. So if that was the case and he did end up passing out somewhere outside, it seemed likely that he was just buried in snow somewhere along the route that he would have taken to get home. But after digging through the snow and as time passed and all the snow melted, there were still no signs of Ryan. Here we are today, 7 years later, and not one single clue as to what happened to him has ever surfaced. Over the years though, there have been 3 main theories as to what could have happened to him. Theory number 1 is that he did end up getting lost in the woods after leaving the party that night. There is a good possibility that he was intoxicated and ended up getting lost since he wasn't extremely used to the area and died of exposure. But you would think that after all this time that something would have been found by now, like some of his remains or his clothing or any of his personal belongings that he had on him that night. But not even one piece of his clothing was found. One thing that was brought up about this theory is that he could have been attacked by a wild animal after leaving the party. But again, there was no evidence left behind of anything, let alone an animal attack. You'd think that if he was attacked by an animal that some blood would be left behind, or drag marks, or even ripped clothing, but there was absolutely nothing. Another theory is that he was met with foul play to some extent. Some people believe that after leaving the party that night, that he could have been a victim of a hit and run. And after Googling hit and run cases in Sun Peak, I'm honestly kind of shocked how many there were in the last 10 years, so this does seem like a potential possibility. The theory is that he was hit by a car accidentally, and whoever hit him moved his body elsewhere, either off the mountain or out of Sun Peaks altogether. But again, you'd think that there would be some evidence of this in the area, like tire marks or blood left behind, but there was nothing. The last theory is that something happened to Ryan at the house party that night, either accidentally or on purpose, and it was covered up in some way. Some people suspect that Ryan could have overdosed accidentally in the house, and the people at the party helped cover it up. Other people believe that he could have had his life taken in that house by another person, and although there isn't much known about the house party that night, it was searched. So if something truly did happen there, I'm sure evidence would have been found by now. Kind of adding onto this theory is what a man who was staying at a home near Ryan's house had to say. This man said that on the night Ryan disappeared, he heard a guy who was pretty angry yelling to get in the effing car. Now, this could be anything. I know when it's super cold out, I hate when people take a long time getting into the car, so this doesn't sound super unusual to me, but it could also mean something more sinister. And then there's what a retired RCMP investigator had to say when investigating Ryan's disappearance. He initially thought that Ryan just accidentally got lost and died of exposure, but then he interviewed one of Ryan's friends, and that interview changed his mind a little bit. The investigator said that this friend was extremely nervous and acting really strange, and although this information was given to authorities, nothing ever came of it. This theory that something happened at the house party and everyone helped cover it up doesn't seem very likely to me, just based on the fact that when you have that many people in on something, someone at some point is going to say something, and 7 years have passed without a word. It is clear though that something bad happened to Ryan, as there's been no activity on his cell phone, social media, or bank accounts since that fateful night. The Kamloops RCMP hasn't ruled out foul play, but they also haven't found anything criminally suspicious, or anything at all for that matter. They also said that there's no evidence that Ryan ever left the Sun Peaks area. So as time passes, Ryan's case is still frozen in time, and with a lack of any evidence, it's left many wondering what really happened to him. There's currently a $25,000 reward for any information leading to Ryan's whereabouts. His family has gone on to make this Facebook page where they continue to post updates and any information about the case. It kind of created this movement where little green dinosaurs with some of Ryan's information attached to it have been placed all around the world. When people see them, they often take pictures of it and post it to the Facebook group. And in a way, it's a way for Ryan to travel all over the world and touch so many people. The green dinosaurs stemmed from Ryan loving dinosaurs as a kid. His mom said that when he was little, they all played a game together where they had to guess the type of dinosaur. In one of his mom's first ever posts on the Facebook page, she said, quote, "Ryan, wherever you are, let's talk about dinosaurs." And that just breaks my heart. The not knowing is literally devastating, and his family just deserves answers. I just can't fathom that one second you're living your life and the next, everything changes. These are some of Ryan's characteristics and what he was last seen wearing. If you have any information about his disappearance, please contact the number on the screen. Kenny Veach disappeared after finding a mysterious cave near Area 51, and it's one of the creepiest missing person cases I've ever heard of. So Kenny was an avid hiker of 20 plus years and a YouTuber who would create videos of his solo hiking journeys in the deserts of Nevada and California. He became so comfortable and confident hiking alone that he would often camp for several days without a GPS, a compass, or a map. In June of 2014, Kenny came across a video titled "Son of an Area 51 Technician" and left a comment that would gain a lot of attention. Kenny detailed a scary experience he recently had after finding a mysterious hidden cave near Area 51, or more specifically near the Nellis Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Kenny said that the entrance of the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M, but as soon as he got close to the entrance, he felt unusual vibrations throughout his entire body. He said the closer he got to the cave's entrance, the worse the vibrating got, and then an indescribable fear came over him. He couldn't explain it, but he was so scared that he ran out. In the comment, Kenny went on to say that he solo hikes across mountaintops that many people wouldn't dare to go, and that he's been in more caves than he can count. He said he plays with rattlesnakes for fun, but this particular cave was unlike anything he had ever encountered. His comment on this video kind of went viral, and a lot of people were pushing for him to go back and try to find the cave to document it. Almost every single comment was urging him to go back, all except for one that read, quote, "Do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, do not go in. You won't get out." End quote. But this didn't stop Kenny, and on November 10th, 2014, he set out once again to try and find the M Cave. It was originally only supposed to be an overnight hike, so he kissed his girlfriend goodbye and told his family that he'd be back the next day. But Kenny disappeared that day, and he's never been seen again. When he never came back home, his girlfriend reported him missing, and a massive search was launched. Authorities began searching an abandoned vertical mine shaft that was in one of Kenny's recent videos, and there they found his cell phone. Several miles away, they also located Kenny's car. Other than this, no trace of Kenny has ever been found, and because of the nature of his disappearance, it sparked chilling conspiracy theories as to what could have happened to him. One theory is that Kenny became lost or injured and succumbed to the elements, or he could have possibly been killed by a wild animal. Another theory is that he accidentally fell down a mine shaft somewhere and just hasn't been found yet. But one terrifying theory that people have come up with is that the M Cave that Kenny found and was trying to locate again was the entrance to a secret government facility, and that his disappearance was due to him stumbling across government secrets in hopes of keeping him quiet. And of course, the biggest biggest conspiracy theory that people have come up with is that Kenny disappeared after encountering aliens since the cave was near Area 51. But obviously these are all just theories and have never been proven. A more realistic theory has been brought up by his girlfriend. She says that it's possible that Kenny died by suicide as he reportedly struggled with his mental health in the years leading up to his disappearance. She mentioned that he left behind his camera, so he obviously was not going on that hike to film anything as most people thought he was. This would make sense considering a few life changes before he went missing. Just the year prior, Kenny suddenly quit his job to become an inventor. He reportedly invented an improved version of a toilet paper holder, and he even submitted the concept to Shark Tank. Kenny also tried to sell his house, but under one odd condition. He demanded that the new owner had to hire him as a caretaker and continue to let him decorate the house in his own style. Because of this weird condition, he never had any offers. Regardless, it's now been 10 years, and Kenny's disappearance remains unsolved. There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of New Mexico, and we should talk about it. This is Ingrid Colleen Lane. She went missing on October 15th of this year after leaving the Bodhi Manda Zen Center in the Jemez Mountains. She went on an overnight meditation retreat to clear her head and focus on her mental health, and it's something that she had done multiple times in the past, except this time she never returned home. Ingrid was last seen that day on Forest Road 144 by two hunters after her 2019 Subaru Impreza hatchback got a flat tire. The two hunters aired up the tire for her and asked if she wanted to ride to the nearest town as it was a really remote area. But she declined and said that she wanted to hike to a local mountain peak. This all happened around 2 p.m. Unfortunately, she did not specify which mountain peak, and this would be the last interaction that she would have with anyone. 3 days later, her car was found abandoned on that same road, and the rear window was smashed. And this is where things start to get strange. Inside the car was a burner phone that was still in its package, untouched and not activated. Her family, but more specifically her husband, are really confused on why that would be in her car. All of her accounts, including her cell phone, have not been active since the 15th. A massive search was launched for Ingrid, which consisted of K9 units, drones, ATVs, and helicopters, but absolutely nothing has been found. The Sandoval Sheriff's Office brought in tracking dogs, which tracked Ingrid's scent in the area south and east of her vehicle on Forest Road 144, which is between Jemez Springs and Los Alamos, but it quickly died off within 2 miles of the vehicle. Authorities speculate she may have gotten a ride further into the mountains because of how suddenly her scent disappeared, and how the canines couldn't pinpoint a way she would have gone out. Most of Ingrid's family live in Oregon. They've spent countless hours traveling to New Mexico to search for her, but the terrain has made it really difficult. The area where she went missing is high elevation, densely forested, very remote, and way beyond cell phone range. According to a local sheriff, it's a really easy place to get lost in. Despite that, it's a really popular place in the hunting community and for avid hikers just like Ingrid, who had been to the area multiple times. Like I mentioned earlier, Ingrid had stayed at the Bodhi Manda Zen Center many times in her life. The Zen Center reportedly confirmed that Ingrid had been there that day around 9 a.m., and while she was there, she meditated with the group but left shortly after. The director of the retreat said that she seemed to be in a good frame of mind and that nothing was amiss. But Ingrid completely vanished, and it's now been 6 weeks with no sign of her. At this point, authorities do not suspect foul play despite the odd circumstances. Her family stated that she struggles with sleep and mental health, but they don't believe that she went into the mountains not planning to come back for many reasons. One reason being is that she was really happy before this happened, planning on going back to work the next week, making plans, and just overall excited about her future. She and her husband are described as having a once-in-a-lifetime type of love, and they say that it would be so out of character for her to just leave without saying anything. Ingrid also has a rare lung problem that worsens when it's cold out, so it would be extremely unlikely that she would intentionally hike far away from her car that day. She also just wasn't packed to camp or be gone for an extended period of time. Her family has searched Chacoma, which is reportedly the highest point in the area, as well as San Antonio Mountain, but because it's now winter, the dangerous terrain has made it really difficult to continue searching by foot. I've attached a GoFundMe in my bio created for the family so that they can continue funding the search for Ingrid. They plan to conduct as many helicopter searches as they can with the funds. If you're local to New Mexico, please share this any way that you can. Right now, having her face out there is so important. Ingrid is described as 5'5", 120 pounds, and has brown hair and hazel eyes. If you have any information at all, please call the Sandoval Sheriff's Office at 505-867-7526. What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Corzilius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Korzilius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident.